Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give everyone about 2 minutes to get on. It's 1:01 right now, so we'll start at 1:03. But just a couple housekeeping items as people join. First, I love seeing everyone here. I'm really excited you're all here. That being said, with so many people, I want to make sure that we're going to try to record it. So if everyone can make sure they're on mute, click your little microphone button to turn it off, please. And for the time being, at the end of the presentation, we'll take some questions and you're welcome to put your camera on at that point. But if we can turn off our cameras during the presentation, that'll just help make sure that everything runs really smoothly. But again, it's great to see everybody's faces and put faces to names. So I don't want to discourage that in the long term. But we'll do that. The other thing is I know a lot of folks have asked about if the presentation will be recorded or made available. We do have a slideshow that we're presenting and that will be made available to everyone. And I'm going to record it, but it's likely that the recording won't be available. It'll probably go on YouTube and it'll be made available at some point next week. So if folks need that, then we can provide that next week. So I'm going to do that. And lastly, we will have plenty of time for questions at the end. So please hold on to your questions if you have them. You're welcome to put them in the chat as well. And one of the staff might answer the question if they can, but we do want to make sure that everybody can hear the questions. If you have really project-specific questions, I would recommend we'll set up a time later to talk about very project-specific questions. But please, any questions about what we talk about today, you're welcome to put into the chat or wait till the end. So that's where we're going to go. It's 1:03. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to start recording, I think. And I'm going to welcome everyone to the fiscal year 2026 AAHPP Grantee orientation. And so we are going to start off today with some introductions and some opening remarks. And then we're going to go through, I'm going to actually have an agenda here that oh goodness. All right, so we're going to go through some remarks and then we're going to go through some of the initial tasks that you as a grantee will want to take care of. We'll talk about the grant agreement process, information about getting payments, procurement, and records retention, all sorts of exciting things. And at the end, like I said, we'll have time for questions, but we'll start with some introductions. So my name's Stacy Montgomery. I'm the Capital Programs Administrator here at the Maryland Historical Trust. I'm joined by our two other grants administration staff, Bill Hirsch, who's the Capital Grants and Loans Administrator at MHT, and Alexandria Anderson, who is a research specialist with the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture. I'm also joined by Caitlin Swaim, who is our grants specialist. Sorry, not grant specialist. She's our assistant grants manager, and she does important things like assist with the grant agreement and the payment processing. And finally, we're joined by Chanel Johnson, who's the Executive Director of the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture. And I've asked her if she can just say a few opening remarks before we get started on this. So Chanel, take it away.
Yes, and before you came on, I was trying to figure out how to change my name on Google Meet because it still says my maiden name, but it is all good. My name is Chanel Compton Johnson. I'm so happy that we have over 40 prospective applicants in the room. I first want to thank the incredible staff at Maryland Historical Trust for their partnership in administering really the only grant program, one of two grant programs of its kind in the country, the African American Heritage Preservation Program grant. I also want to thank Alex for all the great work that you're doing on the commission to further professionalize and expand this grant program throughout the state of Maryland. Thank you. I don't know if we have any commissioners in the room, but if you're here, thank you for all the work that you're doing to keep Black history preserved and alive in our state. And most importantly, thank all of you, all of the applicants, all the work that you're doing. A lot of the times is volunteer based to keep these sites of living histories as testimonies to the legacies of African Americans who built and shaped this country. Thank you. I'm actually, right now, I'm supposed to be at the Maryland Tourism Day, and the earlier speakers were talking a lot about, the power of tourism, the tourist economy. And what you all are doing is contributing to heritage tourism. You're contributing to education of our young people for today and future generations. So this is literally the groundwork that this program was built on to promote greater racial equity and preservation and education and history throughout the state of Maryland over 12 years ago. And we continue to do that today. So I hope today that you learn. I hope that you connect with one another, and best of luck in your applications. And even still, regardless, this is a very competitive grant program. Our agencies are here for you to provide technical assistance and research beyond just resources, but also in capacity building and thought partnerships and beyond. So thank you for all that you're doing. And I will pass the mic, so to speak, to Stacey Montgomery for the rest of the program.
Thank you so much, Janelle. Appreciate that. Thank you for joining us today. So in our introductions, I did mention that Alex Anderson, Bill, and I will serve as the project monitors for your grants. And hopefully you're seeing your project up here. And you'll see each project is assigned to a principal project monitor, but we do function as a team. We want to make sure that we can assist each other if we have similar projects. And so if one of us, takes a vacation or gets sick or something, there's someone else who knows something about your project and can assist you if something comes up during that time. So we do take a teamwork approach here. But these are the project monitors here. And like I said, this presentation will be available to everyone so you can see, and your project monitor will reach out to you to schedule meetings and calls and all of that. But these are the main staff that you'll be interacting with through the majority of your grant project. So, all right, what's next? So I think everyone has been waiting. We had a long process to get here. And maybe you're wondering, what do I do next? So really, one of the most important things that you can do right now, you should have received an email. I know I've been getting emails from a lot of people about this, but the project summary sheet that was sent to you, or the link to it. If you've had any technical difficulties, please keep emailing us and we'll try to assist you with that. Caitlin is going to talk about the project summary sheet and the grant agreement, but some principal things to understand is that we need the project summary sheet to be completed and submitted back to us so we can develop that grant agreement. The grant agreements are sent to you electronically through Adobe Sign. So if you've not used that program, let us know, but they will be coming electronically to everyone. If you haven't received a grant before, or you skipped this step in the past, you're a previous grantee, but just never got around to it, you can sign up for direct deposit. And we highly recommend that. Your payments get to you much faster. The information is on this site, on this page here. You can sign up for it. It does take some time, so we recommend getting on that right away. The next thing is reviewing the Capital Grants and Loans Manual. This is your, and thank you, Bill, put the link in there. It's also, if you click on it in this presentation, when I send it, you can get to it there as well. But this is really your reference guide through the whole program. So, your project monitors can always answer questions for you. I say always, we can answer questions for you when we're at work. But if you have a question that, if it happens, if you think of something in the middle of the night, we're not going to be able to answer the call then, but you can refer to this capital grants and loans manual and you might be able to get an answer from that. But it's there if something comes up or you just have a question, you can always refer to that. But of course, we're here to help as well. And finally, there's only 2 properties that have easements on them, and they were asterisked in the slide with the different project monitors. You probably know you have an easement. If you don't, you don't have one. But if you do have easements, there's some information on contacting the MHT easement administrator and the link to the change or alteration application form. But also your project monitor knows that you have an easement and will make sure that you follow the requirements for that as well throughout the project. So these are the first things that you can do. Now I'm going to hand it over to Caitlin to talk about the project summary sheet and to talk about grant agreements.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Swaim, and like Stacy said, I am an assistant grants manager here at MHT, and I assist with grant agreements and processing payments for your awards. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the project summary sheet, and I know that some of you are probably experiencing some hiccups with this. I think the most important thing to note is that our system just recently went through an overhaul with our current service provider. So sometimes these things aren't as smooth, but always reach out to us if you're experiencing any issues accessing the project summary sheet. But as you can see here, this is what the project summary sheet looks like when you are logged in to our portal. It's the same portal that you use to submit the application. And the purpose of the project summary sheet is to outline the budget, the project scope, timetable for your grant, and let us know if you need to make any changes because, like Stacy said, we use this information to draft your grant agreement. But once you're logged in, you can see the project summary sheet by navigating to your most recent AAHPP application, clicking the project summary sheet requirement as shown here. Once you click on that form name, which is a blue hyperlink, it'll open the form, but you can make edits and then you'll submit it just like you did with your original application. I also want to note again that our portal was recently overhauled, and so the current software provider is still ironing out some of those bumps. Next slide. So the project summary sheet confirms that information specific to your grant award, and it includes the name of your project monitor, who will be your main point of contact. The project summary sheet is an opportunity for you to communicate any concerns or changes to the project scope or timeline. We recognize that some time has passed since that original application, so take an opportunity to update us. Any particular easement or compliance requirements that may have been identified during the review process will also be outlined here. You must name the individual who will be eligible for signing the grant agreement. It's very important that you select an individual who's eligible to legally sign on behalf of the organization. There's a list of titles such as executive director, and we'll discuss that more in detail later. If you have questions about who might be eligible, I'd encourage you to reach out to your project monitor. The project summary sheet, on the other hand, does not need to be completed by an authorized signatory. So don't worry about trying to transfer, the project summary sheet to someone else's account for signing. That's not necessary. But even if you're not making any changes to the project, we still require you submit the project summary sheet just to let us know that there are no changes. But I can't start generating your grant agreement until I've received that project summary sheet. So the sooner you get it back to us, the sooner we'll get moving on the grant agreement, and the sooner you can begin work on the project and receive the first payment. Next slide. Grant agreements. So after you submit that project summary sheet, you'll be receiving a grant agreement from me via Adobe Sign. The grant agreement is a legal contract, so by signing the document, you're agreeing to the terms outlined within it. So please be sure that you read the document in its entirety and you refer to it regularly throughout the course of your project. It's also important that others in your organization are familiar with the contract and the terms outlined within it, particularly those involved in submitting your request for payment and anyone involved in achieving the project timeline and meeting the deliverables. This is a legally binding document, so it must be signed by someone who's legally authorized to enter into contracts on behalf of your organization, which I'll discuss more on the next slide. We'll send you the grant agreement via Adobe Sign to request a digital signature. You don't need an app or a program or anything on your computer to sign this. It's going to come to your email. So check your spam folder. Sometimes they do get trapped in there occasionally. When you receive the email from Adobe Sign, it's going to prompt you to complete specific fields that are going to specify, where to sign it, date, those types of things. Once you complete the signature, Adobe is going to automatically assign that agreement to other parties at the Maryland Historical Trust for signature. When all of the signatures have been applied, you will receive the final version of the document, also from Adobe Sign, to your email. Next slide. As previously mentioned, your grant agreement has to be signed by someone who's legally authorized to enter into contracts for your organization. And there's some examples here about common authorized signatories. If you're not sure who's legally authorized to sign on behalf of your organization, check your organization's bylaws. If it's not clear that the representative has the legal authority to sign on behalf of the grantee, we might request additional documentation. Next slide. Also included in your grant agreement will be a blank W-9, which will be attached at the very, very end. You must complete this form in order to receive payment. Even if you've received payment from us in the past, you will still need to complete the W-9. When you receive that, fill out that top portion of the form in part 1. The address that you use to fill out that form is going to be the same address that we send the paper check to for your grant payments. Sign and date part 2. And to note that the form has to be signed by an authorized signatory. Next slide. Your organization must be in good standing with the State Department of Assessments and Taxation in order for us to execute your grant agreement or issue any payments. You can check your organization's status anytime online at the link included on this slide. It's a good idea to check the status ahead of submitting a request for payment. If your organization is not in good standing, we cannot process a request for payment and you could risk having funds recaptured. If your organization's not in good standing, it's usually an easy fix, but we can't do it for you. It's something that you're going to have to address. You may be able to fix the status online. And I think that's all for me, so I'll pass it back to program staff.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. That's helpful information. Okay, great. So let's see. So I think, again, everybody seems very excited to get started. I know as I've talked to folks, they're ready to go. So after you have completed your grant agreement and signed that, then what's going to happen next is that we will schedule ideally a site visit. We'd really like to come and see your site in person. But if there's something really pressing, a meeting or a call with your project monitor would be okay too. Keep in mind, we're all trying to schedule a number of these, so please be patient with us. And if you're ready to meet, send us a couple of good dates and times. We try to schedule things kind of together. So we might be hitting your region together to go see a number of sites. When we come to the meeting, we'll bring you a copy of the grants manual. We'll also talk to you in person about a lot of the things we're discussing today. But one of the things we're going to do once we walk through your site is develop a list of priorities from the scope of work you've submitted. And occasionally we identify things that really need to happen ahead of that. So we'll talk about what needs to happen based on your scope of work. You can talk to us, and you may want to in the next couple of weeks kind of develop your list of priorities based on that. And then when we meet, you're ready to do that. And we'll talk about the order of operations. The other thing that we're going to talk a lot about, and we're going to go into detail about this today, is, well, once you've identified, what's the work that's going to be done? Well, how do you get the work done, right? So because this is state funds, all the projects have to be competitively bid. Your project monitor is going to work with you on the competitive bidding process, but you want to make sure if you've already completed a project or if you've already hired someone, that's unlikely to be something that this grant is going to be able to fund. So any project that is identified through this grant that you want us to fund will need to be competitively bid. So how's that going to happen? So your project monitor is going to work with you, to make sure that if you do have an easement, that you've got easement committee approval first. But we want to talk about, well, what's the project, what's the scope, and who are we trying to get bids from? So maybe your first stop is pre-development. Maybe you need to hire an engineer to do a structural engineer's report to get some kind of conditions assessment, or maybe you need an architect to do some drawings, or maybe you need to hire a roofer to do roof repairs. In any of those situations, we're going to work with you to develop an RFP and to do a competitive bidding process where we're going to need to identify not only the scope of work, who would be appropriate to handle, what kind of worker is appropriate to do that kind of work. And then we're going to put together an RFP, and your project monitor can provide you with a template for that. We have really helpful templates where you kind of plug in the basic information about your site, and we can work with you on developing the scope. You, as the grantee, are responsible for sending that grant out to folks who are going to bid on that. For the majority of projects, you'll be required to reach out to at least 6 firms to get bids. That doesn't mean that you need 6 responses, but it means that you need to reach out to 6 firms. And your project monitor, again, we can't make recommendations, but we can look to similar projects in your region and see if there are other folks that have been solicited to in the past that you could include in that as well. And then the other thing is that if your project for actual work, for construction work, is over $40,000, or if it's pre-development work over $25,000, you'll also have to place an ad. The grant can fund that ad, but the ad has to run either 3 times in one publication over the course of 30 days or 1 time in 3 different places over the course of 30 days. So your project monitor will work with you on that. There are occasions where, you may be in a region where there's only, 3 or 4 folks who do this kind of work, and we can talk about that specific concerns about that. But generally, the rule is reaching out to at least 6 firms. And if it's over $25,000 for architectural services and $40,000 for construction services, you also need to place an ad. So what we're going to do, we're going to develop that RFP with you and your project monitor. We're going to send you a template. You're going to complete it. You're going to go back and forth with your project monitor until everybody is satisfied and things are ready to go. And then you, the grantee, are responsible for releasing it to these companies and putting out the ad. We'll also provide you, I'm going to go to the next slide here, with an RFP response template where you can track who you've reached out to, right? I find this really helpful. I like to give it to the folks that I work with at the time they send that RFP out so they can immediately list all the people that they've reached out to. And then as those responses come in, they can track that. Responses also include if someone says, I'm sorry, we're too busy to take that project on right now, or no, we're not interested in that. That counts as a response, and you can save that email. And when you're done, you'll need to send, when the 30 days has passed, you'll need to send all of the proposals you received, any kinds of bids, things like that. And then that includes any indications that folks are not going to bid. And if you didn't hear from anybody in the 30 days, then you can just wrote they never responded. That's fine, but we need to know that. The response template also gives you a place to note, did they maybe say, oh, I can only do half of this project? Or are they an MBE? Or did you have one of the things in an RFP might be to have the contractor come out to the site. You might hold a site visit. Did this person submit a bid, but they never came to your site? Any kind of notes that you think are helpful for us to know and that might influence your thoughts process on which contractor you prefer to work with. For our purposes, we're looking for the lowest cost, best qualified, right? So a lot of the work for this type of grant is specialized, not all of it, but a lot of it is. So we want to make sure someone might put in a low bid, but if your site is a historic site, they're putting on, they're doing repairs to a historic windows and the company has never seen a historic window before, they're probably not the right company to work with. So we want to make sure that we're hiring somebody who's qualified to do the work and then picking the lowest cost at that, unless there's some other reason that a different person would be better. And that's a conversation you'll have with your project monitor. And once you've identified the contractor that you're going to work with, you'll get a draft of their contract from them. And before that's signed, you'll want to make sure your project monitor reviews that as well. Sometimes there are things in there that we want to make sure end up in the contract. So please get a draft of that. And we will need the final signed contract from that between you and the contractor, and it's made between you and the contractor. We will need a copy of that before we're able to process any kind of payments. Another thing to keep in mind is that two things. If you have an easement, you'll need to get easement committee approval. But if you have a project that's over $200,000 or $2,000 or more, you do need to comply with the department's MBE goal, which is of 29% MBE participation. The project monitor can work with you to try to achieve that goal, and that's something we'll work with you individually on. And I want to let everyone know, I know we're giving you a lot of information. One of the great things about this program is you do have an individual project monitor who's going to be able to work with you. So again, you can reference this presentation and the grants and loans manual, but we're here to help you. So if you need assistance with any of this, we're here to help through that process, and we're here to support you all the way through. Okay, so let me go to the next slide. So now let's talk about payments. So some grants provide you the whole payment up front. That's not how this grant works. We pay on invoices. So like I said before, there's two things. If you need an easement, no one in this group is getting a new easement, so we're going to skip that. But your grant agreement has to be fully executed. We MHC staff have to approve of the RFP process, have to see a signed contract before we can make payments. We can release payments for either invoices. If you hired someone to replace your roof, they replace your roof, they send you an invoice for the roof, we can pay that invoice. We can pay for materials, things like that. So if you need like a mobilization fee, that would be in the contract, and we would make sure that you alert your contractor to put that mobilization fee or that deposit into the contract, and we can pay a fee if that is listed in the contract and we have an invoice for that. All payments go directly to you, the grantee. We do not pay the contractor. You are responsible for paying any contractors or consultants, but you are required to do so. So if you send us an invoice for roof replacement and we send you the $30,000 to do the roof replacement, you are then required to take that $30,000 and pay the roofer with that. It usually takes about 30 to 60 days to receive payment from the time that you make that request, and we are able to process it. So keep that in mind. And that's one of the reasons we like to be involved in the contract process, so we can make sure that your contractor understands. They know they'll get paid. They just need to understand that time frame. So that's why we want to be involved in that. And like Caitlin mentioned, you do need to be in good standing with SDAT to get the payment. So if you submit to us a payment and you're not in good standing, you're going to have to go back and fix that first before the payment can be released. So please make sure you're doing those payments, okay? Or not the payments, so you're keeping up with your SDAT status. So I think I spoke a little bit about this, but when you need to request a payment, you're going to email your project monitor. For a deposit, like I said, you're going to want to make sure that that's included in the contract. The value of that deposit is included in the contract. For completed work or materials, so if you got that roof replaced, a photo, receipts, canceled checks for purchased materials, anything like that, copies of the invoice, things that show that not only provide an invoice, but demonstrate that the work has been completed. If we're able to, would love to come see it in person. But if it's something like if you hired an architect and they're working on that, we want to see either maybe drawings or information on what they've done. We need some kind of evidence of what the payment is for. And so in the end, if you are doing pre-development work, we're going to want any of the documents that are produced, any kind of plans, reports, things like that. We also will want to have, and if it's broken up incrementally, we'll want drafts and things like that when you submit for payment. But your individual project monitor, again, can talk you through that process. So once you request the final 10% of your grant, you'll need to submit to us the project completion report. So that is a document that it's available on our website, and we'll send it to you. But it is something that takes about 5 to 10 minutes to complete. It talks about how you spent all your funds, how much money went into the project, all of that. And that is required. So if you submit to us, even you don't have to remember, once we look at the calculation, we'll send it to you to let you know we've received your request for payment, but you do need to submit this project completion report. Once we have that, and any other deliverables like photos of the work, any reports, things like that, we'll want to make sure we have everything that we need before we close out the project. I did mention this before, but please, please, please make sure you're signed up with the office to get direct deposit. Last year, it was taking a very long time. I think it's moving a little bit more quickly, but please, please, please do this if you are a new, if you've never gotten a grant before through the state and you've never registered for direct deposit, or if you have and things have changed, just make sure everything is up to date because that's going to speed the process up quite a lot. And then I think, well, Caitlin, you might want to chime in on this as well. But one of the last things is that we do ask that you keep documentation for up to 3 years. That's one of the requirements in your grant agreement. So, all the documentation of your expenses, any credit card statements, canceled checks, anything that is connected with the project, please keep that on file there and make sure to send it, make sure your project monitor has all that information as well so we can keep that for audit purposes. And so just make sure to keep a good record. If you've identified someone who's going to be the main keeper of that during the grant, make sure that your organization knows where they're keeping that information. We do work with a lot of grantees, and sometimes someone was really involved and then they need to leave, they get too busy, and no one knows anything about the grant. Make sure that there's more than one person involved with your project, or that if there is one person who's handling everything, somebody else knows where they're keeping that information. If you're using any kind of staff or volunteer time, keep track of that. Keep track of all the proof of your expenses. And yeah, like I said, you need to keep everything for at least 3 years. So some final reminders before we move to the question and answer section. You're going to want to keep in touch with your project monitor throughout the course of the project. So don't wait, don't be quiet for a really long time. Let us know, even if you're experiencing some kind of a delay or if you're having an issue, let us know. Don't just kind of pop up a year from now with like a request for a payment. Talk to us, keep us in the loop. Let us know if any kind of issues arise. Sometimes we can help you troubleshoot them. Sometimes we just need to know, okay, the person who's been handling the grants has a sick relative and needs to take care of them. They're going to need to postpone things for a little bit. Just let us know what's going on so we can advise you on what's best to do. We want to schedule a final site visit when the work is done. So please keep that in mind. And just, again, I can't stress it enough. Please, please, please make sure that any work that you want to have paid for by this grant, that you get it approved by the project monitor, not at the end, but before you get started on it. We need to approve how you solicit it, who was selected, approve the contract, all of that. Okay. And for follow-up, so this is the contact information, your project monitors. Caitlin, you can talk to you about grant agreements, and Carolyn, if you do have an easement, she is your main point of contact for that. And with that, I want to open it up to any questions because I've talked for a long time. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Carla, I see that you have questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. I actually put my question in the chat,
Okay.
but for minority and women businesses, I saw that you said that payment would be received between 30 and 60 days from the agency. If a minority and women business, or a small business for that matter, completes their work before that time, do they have to wait that length of time? It's sometimes difficult for a smaller business to float their money that long.
So that's just how long the payment takes to get once we've processed it.
Okay.
Yeah. So they may want to structure how they get paid if they have that information, and we can talk about that really specifically to any specific project. But that might be if they understand that it's going to take 30 to 60 days to get paid. If they understand that when they're developing their contract, then they can structure payments so that they're not stuck in a bad spot. Does that make sense?
It does, but it doesn't always work that way.
Unfortunately, we just don't have control.
I worked in the MBE arena. That's why I was asking.
Great.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Are there other questions?
Yes, this is
Yes.
Gail. Hi, from Choose Memorial Church. I have probably two questions. The first question is I'm reviewing the summary, the project summary that we're complete. It says already on the project summary. The first question I have, it talks about the project start date. It says 12/5/25, and I'm assuming that was more or less that initial notification date.
Yes.
Now, would we change that because it didn't really start? Well, let me put it. That's the start of this whole process, but that might not be the start of our actual project.
Right.
I mean, so would we on this form would we need to change that?
You don't need to change
just
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, got it. Now my second question is when it asks about who the grant agreement signer, and you know, it gives the information about who has authority to sign. Okay. If the church, well, here's the question. Is it acceptable that as the grant processor myself, as the grant administrator, or no, yeah, the grant administrator for my church, the Grantee, which is our church, okay? Can I also be the grant agreement signer?
Only if you have the authority to do so. Only if if your organizational documents say that you have that authority to do that.
Now, if my organizational document doesn't have me in that type of position, am I understanding it that the organization could write a document saying that they give me legal authority to sign this grant agreement on behalf of the organization? And you know what I'm saying is, if I'm not holding a position in the church that might automatically give me the authority to sign, can the church designate or make an agreement? I mean, the organization that designate me as representing them to legally sign or be the grant agreement signer for this project?
So I have a question. Do you need to be the signer of it, or do you want to be the person who's like the day-to-day, who's involved?
Well, I would be the person being the day-to-day.
Okay, so you can still be that. The church can designate you as that, and you can still ensure that people who have the authority to sign the grant agreement sign the grant agreement. That doesn't preclude you from being the project contact.
No, okay. Could I be both? If the church wanted me, that was the thing. Could I be both?
Bill, it looks like you want to say something.
Hi, Gil. This is Bill here. Yes, you can do that, but in order to do that, we would need a corporate resolution from the board of your church, and that has to be signed by the person who would be signing the grant agreement. So it's just recommended that the person in your bylaws and articles of incorporation that are allowed to sign, that are specifically called out, have them sign that grant agreement. And then you can do the day-to-day management, because
Okay.
they're also going to have to sign the corporate resolution that would be required anyway.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So they will be set. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Donna, I see you have a question.
Hi everyone. I completed the project summary sheet. It was no changes on it. So let me just make clear with Caitlin, you will be sending us one where we have to do a sign. Is that correct? After you receive that, is that correct?
Sorry, Stacey, I'm just jumping in here.
No, go ahead.
So hold on, my camera is thinking. While it's thinking, there it goes. Yes, so once your project summary sheet comes in, it's usually reviewed by the program staff, and then that they will give me the approval. I will then start generating the grant agreement using the information from that project summary sheet. So that information, once it filters down to me, I will get it out to you.
Okay, now Eric, Ashby Bay, and I are the ones on the original grant. So will both of us sign or just one of us? Because we own the cemetery, so we are not a nonprofit with Point of Rocks. So will both of us sign or just one of us?
Do you want me to take that, Stacey? So I think since it's you as an individual, right?
Yeah.
It could be one or both of you. If you
One
want
of
it to be,
both. Okay.
if you want it to be both, I would put the name. Well, you've already submitted the project summary sheet, but
Only room for one name, and I put my name on there, but I would like both of our names to be on there.
oh, okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, if you just let us know that that's how you prefer to sign
Okay,
it.
that's fine. Then I'll send you, Caitlin, I have your email, and I'll send
Yes,
and remind you with a note with that.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think I saw Yvette had a question. Yvette Young.
Yes, I had two questions, and I may have missed it earlier, but if I can't locate my project summary sheet in my email, where would I go to get another copy of it?
So
Would I?
it's linked to you. It should be the email that you received that notified you of this meeting also had a
Yes.
link to, so if you log back into your application using that email that you used, you should now see a project summary sheet there.
Okay.
If you
All
don't,
right.
you can email us and let us know.
Okay. And my other question is, if you have funds that I know there's a deadline on how long you have to use the funds. Can you ask for extensions if your project goes a little bit beyond?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So you would talk to your project monitor about that. And that's why staying in communication, letting them know about the ups and downs of your project are really, really critical. So they can make a determination as you get to the end of the 2 years. Is it time to issue an extension? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think this is the Catoctin Furnace. You just show up as President Catfur, which is delightful, but
I'm sorry, that's myself. My name is Crystal. I have a question. I did the grant myself with Elizabeth Comer's help. However, I signed it and so forth, but I'm since taken on a partner sort of to work through this. Does he have his own account to log in and look at things if he wants to? Or does he use the furnace's account?
so the last interaction you're going to have with the grant portal, unless you're reapplying next year for this application, is going to be to complete the project summary sheet. So unless you want them to complete the project summary sheet, there's really no need for them to be interacting with the portal.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there other questions? Okay. Well, so as I mentioned before, we're going to be reaching out to you all in the coming weeks. once your grant agreement has been signed. But in the meantime, as you're completing your project summary sheet, like I said, if you have any technical difficulties, please let us know. Sometimes sending like a screenshot is really, really helpful for, we don't have always the same view as you. So it's really helpful when you send a screenshot and let us know what you're seeing, and we can help you with that. But just stay in touch, get the project summary sheet completed, sign up for direct deposit, and stay on the lookout for your grant agreement to come to you. Like Caitlin said, look in your spam folder to make sure it hasn't ended up in there. If you submitted your project summary sheet and it's been a while, look in your spam folder and let us know. But we'll, as the grant agreements get signed, we'll be reaching out to schedule as the weather, hopefully, fingers crossed, is getting warmer now, right? It's not like 2 degrees outside. We'd love to come and walk around, meet you in person, and set up that time to talk about what's going on and how this grant can best assist your site. So again, thanks to everyone for joining. And if you had others who are part of your organization who are going to be helping, and you want to share this information with them, like I said, probably next week, if the recording looks good, we'll put it on to YouTube. But this presentation we can easily share with everyone. And anything that's in it is also something that you can just email us directly and ask questions. We're really, we're here to support you from today and all the way until we process this last payment. And if you become a repeat grantee, and some of you are repeat grantees, and we're excited about that. So we are here to assist you all the way through. So thank you so much again for joining. And we look forward to working with each of you. Okay. Have a wonderful weekend.
All right.
And
Great. Thank you.
Very helpful.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you.